Princess Zara walked through the long metal halls of the space station. Her blue skin looked pale under the bright lights. She wore her best royal dress with silver patterns that showed her high rank in the Valerian Empire. Behind her walked 6 guards in dark armor. They made soft clicking sounds with their boots on the floor. Zara felt nervous about this meeting. The humans had asked for help against the Void Swarm. These scary creatures ate entire star systems and left nothing behind. The Valerian Empire had the best ships and weapons in the galaxy. But even they were losing battles against the swarm. The meeting room had a big round table in the center. Valerian leaders sat on one side. They looked calm and proper, like always. On the other side sat the humans. Zara had never seen real humans before. She had only read reports about them. The reports said humans were violent and messy. They fought wars against each other all the time. Their technology was hundreds of years behind Valerian science. But the humans in this room looked different than she expected. They wore clean uniforms and sat up straight. One human man caught her attention right away. He had brown hair and green eyes. His face had small scars on it. When he talked, his hands moved a lot. His voice was strong and confident. The human man stood up when the Valerian Emperor spoke. His name was Jake Morrison. He was some kind of military leader for the humans. Jake began to explain how humans fought against the Void Swarm. He talked about hit-and-run attacks. He described how small, fast ships could confuse the enemy. He said chaos and surprise worked better than big, organized fleets. Zara listened carefully to every word Jake said. This was completely different from how Valerians fought battles. Her people believed in perfect coordination. Every ship moved together like dancers. Every attack was planned down to the smallest detail. The idea of chaos in battle seemed crazy and dangerous, but Jake made it sound like chaos was actually a weapon. He showed videos of human ships darting between swarm vessels. The human pilots flew in patterns that made no sense. Yet somehow they won battles that should have been impossible. The swarm could not predict what the humans would do next. During the formal dinner that night, Zara sat across from Jake. She tried to focus on her food, but kept looking at him. Jake was telling stories about protecting civilian ships during swarm attacks. His eyes lit up when he talked about saving people. He cared more about keeping families safe than winning glory in battle. This surprised Zara. Most Valerian commanders thought about victory first. They calculated acceptable losses before each battle. But Jake seemed to think every single life mattered. He remembered the names of soldiers who died under his command. He visited wounded crew members in the medical bay after every fight. Zara felt her skin change color slightly. This happened when Valerians got emotional. She hoped nobody noticed. She quickly looked down at her plate and tried to think about something else. But she could still hear Jake talking. His voice was warm and kind when he spoke about his crew. The other Valerian leaders were not impressed with human tactics. Admiral Vel spoke first after dinner. He said human methods were crude and wasteful. He pointed out that humans lost more ships than Valerians in most battles. Commander Vex agreed and said chaos could never beat proper military training. Emperor Vel Thoros listened to both sides without showing emotion. He was Zara's father, but also the ruler of billions of people. His decisions affected the whole empire. Zara knew he was thinking about politics as much as military strategy. An alliance with humans might make the empire look weak to other alien races. Jake did not get angry when the Valerians criticized human tactics. Instead, he smiled and nodded politely. He said he understood their concerns. Then he asked a simple question. If Valerian methods were so much better, why was the Empire losing battles against the swarm? The room went very quiet. Nobody wanted to answer that question. It was true that Valerian fleets had suffered major defeats recently. The swarm seemed to adapt to their tactics quickly. What worked in one battle failed in the next. The enemy learned from each encounter and got stronger. Zara found herself agreeing with Jake even though she did not say anything out loud. Maybe perfect coordination was not always the best answer. Maybe sometimes you needed to do something unexpected. The swarm was like a giant computer that could calculate every possible Valerian move. But how could it predict chaos? After dinner, the human delegation prepared to leave. Jake walked past Zara's table and stopped for a moment. He looked directly at her and smiled. Then he said, "Thank you for listening with an open mind, Princess." His words made her skin change color again. This time she was sure other people noticed. That night Zara could not sleep. She kept thinking about Jake's ideas and his warm smile. She had met many Valerian warriors and commanders. They were all brave and skilled, but something about Jake was different. He fought not for glory or honor, but because he cared about protecting others. This kind of motivation was rare in her world. Zara got up and walked to her window. Outside, she could see human ships docked at the space station. They looked small and rough compared to Valerian vessels. But those same ships had won battles that her people's advanced technology could not win. Maybe being advanced was not the same as being effective. The princess made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow she would ask her father to let her work with the human military advisors. She needed to understand how their methods worked. The Empire's survival might depend on learning from these strange, chaotic humans. And if she was being honest with herself, she wanted to spend more time around Jake Morrison. 3 days later, Zara got permission to work with the human tactical team. Her father agreed, but only after much discussion with his advisors. They thought it would be good for the princess to learn about different fighting methods. What they did not know was how much Zara looked forward to seeing Jake again. The human command center was very different from Valerian ship bridges. Everything looked rough and practical. Screens showed data in simple colors. The chairs were made for comfort during long battles. Human crew members moved around freely and talked to each other without strict protocols. Jake welcomed Zara personally. When she arrived, he showed her around the tactical center and introduced her to his team. Lieutenant Lisa Parker was his second in command. She had short red hair and quick eyes that missed nothing. Captain Ryan Walsh commanded the ship called Defiant Star. He was older than the others and had gray in his beard. The first mission came that same day. A mining colony called New Haven was under attack by swarm scouts. The colony had 15,000 people, including many families with children. Valerian and human fleets had to evacuate everyone before the main swarm force arrived. Jake suggested splitting their forces into 3 groups. One group would defend the colony. Another would load civilians onto transport ships. The third would create a diversion to draw swarm attention away from the evacuation. This plan went against everything Zara had learned about keeping fleets. Together, Zara commanded the Valerian ships while Jake coordinated the human vessels. She felt nervous about dividing their strength. In Valerian Military Academy, they taught that split forces were weak forces. But Jake explained that 3 smaller groups could confuse the enemy more than one big fleet. The evacuation began at dawn. Transport ships landed at the colony, while fighter squadrons formed protective screens around them. Zara watched Jake work from his command chair. He spoke directly to individual pilots during the battle. He knew their names and their families. When Pilot Stevens got hit, Jake immediately sent rescue ships to help him. The swarm attacked with typical brutality. Their black ships moved like angry insects. They fired energy weapons that could cut through most armor. But the human pilots did not fight them in straight lines. Instead, they used asteroids and debris as cover. They made quick attacks and then disappeared before the swarm could respond. Zara found herself copying Jake's methods. When swarm fighters came too close to the transport ships, she ordered her pilots to scatter and regroup. This felt wrong according to her training, but it worked. The confused swarm ships could not target the scattered Valerian fighters effectively. During a brief break in the fighting, Jake came to check on her. He noticed that Zara looked tired and stressed. Combat was more exhausting when you had to make quick decisions instead of following set plans. Jake brought her coffee and sat down next to her command chair. He asked if she was okay and if she needed anything. No Valerian commander had ever asked her that during a battle. They expected her to perform perfectly without any support. But Jake seemed to care about her well-being as much as the mission success. This made Zara feel strange and warm inside. The evacuation took 6 hours to complete. Every civilian got safely onto transport ships before the main swarm fleet arrived. The combined human and Valerian forces managed to save 15,000 lives without losing a single transport. This was the kind of victory that Jake valued most. After the battle, Zara stayed in the human command center instead of returning to her own ship. Jake was reviewing battle reports and checking on wounded crew members. She watched him write personal messages to the families of injured pilots. He remembered details about their lives and asked about their recovery. Lisa Parker noticed Zara watching Jake and smiled. She came over and sat down with the princess. Lisa explained that Jake always took care of his people first and worried about military reports later. This was why human crews fought so hard for him. They knew he would never abandon them or treat them as expendable. That evening, Jake invited Zara to join him for dinner in the ship's cafeteria. This was very different from formal Valerian dining ceremonies. Human crew members sat together at simple tables. They talked and laughed while eating basic food. Jake introduced Zara to everyone and made her feel welcome. During dinner, Jake asked Zara about Valerian culture and history. He wanted to understand why her people valued harmony and coordination so much. Zara explained that Valerians believed perfect order created perfect results. Every part of society worked together like instruments in an orchestra. Jake listened carefully and asked thoughtful questions. He said human history was full of chaos and conflict, but sometimes that chaos forced people to find new solutions to old problems. Humans learned to adapt quickly because they never knew what challenge would come next. This made them flexible, but also unpredictable. Zara shared stories about growing up in the royal palace. She had always felt pressure to be perfect like her older sisters. Every word and action was watched and judged by court advisors. She rarely got to make her own decisions or express her real opinions about anything important. Jake said he understood that kind of pressure. Military leaders had to make life or death decisions every day. But he learned that the best commanders trusted their instincts and cared about their people. Perfect plans meant nothing if he did not have loyal crew members willing to follow you into danger. As they talked, Zara realized how isolated her life had been. She knew about military strategy and royal protocol, but she had never learned how to connect with regular people. Jake made it look easy when he talked to his crew. He treated everyone with respect, regardless of their rank or position. The conversation continued late into the night. Zara found herself laughing at Jake's stories about human military training. He described obstacle courses and survival exercises that seemed designed to break people down before building them back up. It sounded painful, but also exciting. When it was time to return to her ship, Zara felt disappointed. She had enjoyed this evening more than any royal banquet or formal ceremony. Jake had treated her like a person instead of a princess. He asked for her opinions and listened to her answers. This was something new and wonderful in her life. Jake walked with her to the docking bay where her shuttle waited. He thanked her for her help during the evacuation mission. He said her Valerian pilots had learned human tactics very quickly. Working together had made both forces stronger and more effective. Before she left, Jake asked if Zara would like to continue working with his team. There would be more evacuation missions and probably bigger battles ahead. He said they could learn a lot from each other if she was interested in staying. Zara agreed immediately without thinking about the political implications. She wanted to learn more about human methods and spend more time with Jake. As her shuttle flew back to the Valerian fleet, she realized her feelings were becoming complicated. This human warrior was changing how she thought about everything, including herself. 2 weeks of working together had changed everything for Zara. She spent most of her time on human ships, learning their tactical methods. Every day brought new missions against swarm forces. The joint operations were becoming more successful as human and Valerian crews learned to fight together. But the biggest challenge was still ahead. Intelligence reports showed that the swarm had a central command center in the Nexus system. This facility coordinated attacks across multiple star systems. If they could destroy it, the entire swarm network might collapse. The problem was getting there. The Nexus system had heavy defenses, including automated weapon platforms and patrol fleets. Any large fleet approaching the system would be detected and destroyed long before reaching the command center. The Valerian Council declared the mission impossible. Jake had a different idea. He proposed using small, fast ships to sneak into the system, while the main fleet created a massive diversion elsewhere. The infiltration team would plant explosives in the command center and escape during the chaos. It sounded completely insane. To most Valerian commanders, Zara found herself supporting Jake's plan during the strategy meeting. She pointed out that conventional attacks had failed repeatedly. Maybe it was time to try something unconventional. Her support surprised everyone, including her own military advisors. Admiral Vel questioned Zara's judgment in front of the entire council. He suggested that spending too much time with humans had affected her thinking. Other Valerian commanders nodded in agreement. They thought the princess was being influenced by primitive human ideas. This criticism made Zara angry. She stood up and defended the human approach, using examples from recent battles. She pointed out that human tactics had saved more Valerian lives than traditional methods. The room went silent when she finished speaking. Emperor Vel Thuros watched his daughter with new interest. He had never seen her speak so passionately about military matters. Usually Zara followed the advice of her tutors and stayed quiet during important meetings. This time she was thinking for herself and fighting for what she believed. After much debate, the council approved Jake's plan. Zara volunteered to lead the diversionary fleet, even though it was the more dangerous assignment. Her job would be to make the swarm think the main attack was coming from her direction. This would draw their forces away from Jake's infiltration team. Jake was not happy about Zara taking the dangerous role. He found her alone after the meeting and tried to convince her to stay with the main fleet. He said she did not need to prove herself by taking unnecessary risks. This led to their first real argument. Zara accused Jake of treating her like a weak princess who needed protection. She said she was tired of everyone thinking she could not handle real combat. Jake replied that he would give the same advice to any friend who was volunteering for a suicide mission. The word friend made Zara stop arguing. She realized that Jake cared about her safety because he valued her as a person. This was different from the political concern her father showed or the formal respect her advisors gave her. Jake actually worried about what might happen to her. They both apologized for getting angry. Jake explained that he had lost too many good friends in previous battles. He did not want to lose another person he cared about. Zara admitted that. She felt pressure to prove herself worthy of human respect and trust. The mission launched 3 days later. Zara's fleet included 30 Valerian warships and 15 human vessels. Jake's infiltration team had only 6 small ships with special stealth equipment. Both groups would have to coordinate perfectly for the plan to work. The diversionary attack began exactly on schedule. Zara's fleet appeared at the edge of the Nexus system and immediately came under heavy fire. Swarm defense platforms launched. Thousands of missiles while patrol fleets moved to intercept the invaders. Everything was going according to plan, but then something went wrong with Jake's mission. His team managed to reach the command center, but got trapped inside by security forces. Their stealth ships were damaged and could not escape. Jake's team was stuck with no way to complete their mission or return home safely. Zara faced an impossible choice. Her orders were to maintain the diversion until Jake's team finished their mission. But the infiltration had clearly failed. The smart military decision was to retreat and save her own fleet. The human decision was to try rescuing Jake's team. Without hesitation, Zara ordered her fleet to change course toward the command center. She used Valerian ship speed and firepower to punch through swarm defenses. Her ships took heavy damage, but managed to reach Jake's position. Just as his stealth vessels were about to be destroyed, the rescue operation turned into a running battle through the Nexus system. Zara's ships covered Jake's damaged vessels while fighting off waves of swarm attackers. Several Valerian ships were lost during the fighting, but every member of Jake's team made it out alive. More importantly, Jake's team had managed to plant their explosives before getting trapped. The swarm command center exploded just as the combined fleet escaped the system. The mission was a complete success despite the complications, but Zara's decision to violate orders created serious political problems. She had disobeyed direct commands from the Valerian High Council. Admiral Vel demanded that she face a military tribunal for insubordination. Other commanders agreed that discipline had to be maintained. Jake testified at Zara's hearing 3 days later. He explained how her quick thinking and brave action had saved his entire team. He described the tactical brilliance of her improvised rescue plan. He pointed out that her decision had led to the mission's success and dealt a major blow to the swarm. Despite Jake's testimony, the tribunal found Zara guilty of disobeying orders. They sentenced her to formal censure and removal from active command. The punishment was lighter than it could have been, but still damaged her reputation and career prospects. Emperor Val Feroz was disappointed in his daughter, but also secretly proud. She had shown real leadership and moral courage. The fact that she chose to save lives instead of following orders revealed strength of character. But as emperor, he could not publicly support her decision. That evening, Jake found Zara sitting alone in an observation deck watching the stars. She looked sad and tired after the stress of the tribunal. Jake sat down next to her without saying anything at first. Sometimes just having company was enough. Finally, Zara spoke about her fears of disappointing her father and her people. She had always tried to be the perfect princess that everyone expected, but working with humans had changed her ideas about duty and honor. Now she was not sure what kind of leader she wanted to be. Jake shared his own struggles with survivors, guilt from previous missions. He talked about soldiers who had died under his command and decisions he regretted making. He said that good leaders carry the weight of their choices, but keep moving forward anyway. As they talked, the space between them seemed to shrink. Zara found herself looking at Jake's lips when he spoke. Jake reached over and gently touched her hand. For a moment, it seemed like they might kiss. But then Zara pulled away, suddenly overwhelmed by the implications. She stood up quickly and said she needed to return to her quarters. Jake did not try to stop her, but his expression showed disappointment and understanding. They both knew that their feelings were becoming dangerous for political and personal reasons. Walking back to her room, Zara's skin changed color several times. She was confused about her emotions and scared about what they meant. Caring for Jake felt wonderful and terrifying at the same time. She knew that these feelings could complicate everything, including the alliance between their peoples. Everything changed when Emperor Veltharos arrived at the space station with his full Imperial fleet. Word had reached him about Zara's growing independence and the rumors about her attachment to the human warrior. Palace gossip traveled fast, even across the galaxy, and someone had reported seeing the princess. Spending private time with Jake. Zara felt nervous as she prepared to meet her father. She wore her most formal royal outfit and practiced what she would say. But nothing could prepare her for what the Emperor had decided. He announced that she would be paired with Commander Thanavel from a powerful military family. Thanavel was everything a Valerian nobleman should be. He had perfect military records and came from ancient bloodlines. His family controlled important mining systems and had supported the royal house for generations. The pairing made perfect political sense for the Empire, but Zara felt nothing when she looked at Thanavel. He was handsome according to Valerian standards and spoke correctly about duty and honor. Yet his words sounded empty compared to Jake's passionate speeches about protecting people. Thanavel cared more about following rules than about the lives of individual soldiers. The Emperor made it clear that this pairing was not a request, but a political necessity. The Empire needed strong alliances with military families during wartime. Zara's marriage would strengthen bonds between different Valerian factions. Her personal feelings did not matter compared to the needs of billions of people. Jake learned about the arranged pairing from Lieutenant Lisa Parker. She had overheard Valerian officers discussing the Emperor's announcement. Jake's first reaction was to step back and give Zara space to handle her family obligations. He did not want to cause more political problems for her, but Jake noticed changes in Zara over the following days. She became quiet during tactical meetings and stopped offering her own ideas. When she appeared in public with Thanavel, her smiles looked forced and painful. The confident leader who had rescued his team was disappearing behind a mask of royal duty. During joint training exercises, Zara made basic mistakes that she never would have made before. Her attention wandered during important briefings. Jake realized that the arranged pairing was destroying the person he had come to care about deeply. The crisis came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive swarm fleet heading directly toward the Valerian homeworld. This was not a raiding force, but an invasion army capable of destroying entire planets. The Empire faced the possibility of complete extinction. Traditional Valerian defensive strategies failed catastrophically during the first engagement. The swarm had learned from previous battles and adapted their tactics. They overwhelmed the outer defense fleets using coordinated attacks that left no room for elegant maneuvers. In desperation, Emperor Veltharos called an emergency council meeting. His military advisors had no solutions that did not involve abandoning the homeworld and retreating deeper into imperial space. The thought of giving up their ancestral home was unbearable, but defeat seemed inevitable. Jake requested permission to address the council. He had been studying swarm attack patterns and believed he understood their strategy. The enemy expected Valerians to fight in organized formations using traditional tactics. But what if they did something completely unexpected instead? His plan was radical beyond anything the Empire had ever attempted. Jake wanted to abandon all military protocols and turn the homeworld defense into organized chaos. Small mixed groups of human and Valerian ships would attack from every direction using hit and run tactics. The plan required complete trust between human and Valerian forces. More importantly, it meant throwing away thousands of years of military tradition. Valerian commanders would have to think like humans and embrace the chaos they had always avoided. Most of the council rejected Jake's proposal immediately. They said it was too dangerous and went against everything they believed about proper warfare. Admiral Vell called it the desperate plan of a primitive species that did not understand real military science. But Zara surprised everyone by speaking in favor of Jake's plan. She pointed out that traditional methods had already failed. The enemy was expecting them to fight in predictable ways. Only by doing something unexpected could they hope to win against superior numbers. Thanavel publicly questioned Zara's judgment in front of the entire council. He suggested that her time with humans had corrupted her thinking. He said she was putting the entire empire at risk because of misplaced loyalty to alien ideas. This public criticism created a rift in the Valerian command structure. Some officers supported Thanavel and traditional methods. Others began to think that Sarah might be right about trying something new. The unity that Valerians prized so highly was breaking apart. Emperor Valferus faced the hardest decision of his reign. He could maintain traditional approaches and probably lose the homeworld. Or he could gamble everything on human tactics. That might save his people or destroy them even faster. After hours of debate, the emperor made his choice. He appointed Zara as commander of the Joint Human-Valerian Defense Force. She would have complete authority to use whatever tactics she thought best. This was either brilliant leadership or political suicide. That night before the final battle, Zara came to find Jake in his quarters. She had removed her formal royal robes and wore simple combat gear instead. Her usual nervousness was gone, and she looked determined and focused. She told Jake that working with humans had changed her completely. She had learned that real strength came from protecting others rather than following perfect protocols. She had discovered that caring about people made her a better leader than all her royal training ever had. Then Zara did something that surprised them both. She stepped closer to Jake and told him exactly how she felt. She said that she loved him not just as a friend or ally, but as the person she wanted to spend her life with. She knew this confession might be their last conversation. Jake had been holding back his own feelings to avoid complicating Zara's political situation. But facing the possibility of death in battle made honesty seem more important than politics. He told her that he loved her too, and had been fighting his emotions for weeks. They kissed for the first time in the quiet of Jake's quarters, while the fleets prepared for the most important battle in Valerian history. Both of them knew that their feelings would create huge problems if they survived the coming fight. But in that moment, none of the complications mattered. Outside the windows, they could see swarm ships approaching like a dark cloud that would blot out the stars. Tomorrow would determine whether the Valerian Empire continued to exist or became another victim of the endless hunger that consumed entire civilizations. Zara returned to her own ship before dawn to prepare for battle. She had made her choice between duty to tradition and loyalty to her heart. Now she had to prove that human methods could save her people from destruction. The fate of two species and the future of their alliance would be decided in the chaos of combat where planning meant less than courage and love mattered more than politics. The battle for the Valerian homeworld began at dawn with the largest swarm fleet anyone had ever seen. Dark ships stretched across space like an infection spreading toward the beautiful blue and silver planet below. Traditional Valerian tactics would have meant certain defeat against such overwhelming numbers, but Zara was no longer thinking like a traditional Valerian commander. She had learned from Jake that chaos could be a weapon more powerful than any gun or missile. Instead of forming neat battle lines, she scattered the combined human and Valerian fleets into dozens of small groups. Each group included both human and Valerian ships working together. The human crews provided unpredictable tactics, while Valerian precision made those tactics more effective. It was like watching dancers and warriors merge into something completely new. Jake commanded one of the forward strike teams while staying in constant communication with Zara. He watched her coordinate the complex battle from her command ship and felt proud of how much she had grown as a leader. She was making decisions based on protecting her people rather than following ancient protocols. The swarm forces were initially confused by the scattered defense pattern. They had prepared for organized resistance that they could crush with superior firepower. Instead, they faced enemies that appeared and disappeared like ghosts, using asteroids and space debris for cover. Zara found herself thinking like Jake during the most intense moments of fighting. When swarm ships threatened civilian evacuation transports, she ordered her pilots to scatter and regroup, just like humans had taught her. The enemy could not target what they could not predict, but the battle was far from easy. The swarm adapted quickly and began using their own chaotic tactics. Several human ships were destroyed when they got caught between multiple enemy squadrons. Zara felt each loss personally, just as Jake had taught her to value every life. The turning point came when Jake's strike team got trapped near the swarm command vessel. His ships were damaged and surrounded with no clear escape route. In the old days, Zara would have followed orders to maintain formation and leave the humans to their fate. Instead, she abandoned her assigned position and led a rescue mission personally. She took her fastest ships directly into the heart of the enemy fleet where Jake was fighting for his life. It was exactly the kind of impulsive decision that traditional Valerian commanders would never make, but it worked perfectly. Zara's sudden appearance confused the swarm forces just long enough for Jake's team to break free. More importantly, her rescue attempt inspired other Valerian commanders to take similar risks to help human allies. The combined fleet began fighting like a single organism instead of two separate species. Human creativity merged with Valerian precision to create tactics that neither side could have developed alone. The chaos became beautiful in its own deadly way. Emperor Val Thuros watched the entire battle from his flagship and saw his daughter become the leader he had always hoped she could be. She was not following rules or traditions, but making decisions based on wisdom and courage. This was what real royal leadership looked like. The swarm fleet began to retreat after losing their command vessel to a desperate combined attack. Coordination broke down without central control, and individual ships fled in different directions. The homeworld was saved, but the cost had been enormous. After the battle, Zara's first concern was checking on casualties and helping wounded crew members. She personally visited human and Valerian medical bays to thank injured pilots for their sacrifice. Jake found her in one of the hospitals late that night. They walked together through the corridors where doctors worked to save lives from both species. The battle had proven that humans and Valerians were stronger together than apart. Their different approaches to warfare had created something more effective than either could achieve alone. 3 months later, Emperor Val Thuros made several important announcements. He officially ended Zara's arranged pairing with Fenivel, recognizing that she had grown beyond the need for political marriages. He also promoted her to Supreme Commander of Joint Operations. Between human and Valerian forces, Fenivel was initially bitter about losing his royal bride, but eventually came to respect Zara's choice. He had seen her leadership during the homeworld battle and understood that she was following her heart towards something greater than political convenience. The Emperor also announced the creation of the first joint human-Valerian colony called New Harmony. This world would serve as a permanent base for combined military operations and cultural exchange programs. Zara and Jake were appointed as co-administrators for the colony project. 6 months after the war ended, Zara stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching construction robots build the first city. Jake joined her as he did every evening to watch the sunset over their new home. Their relationship had developed naturally without the pressure of wartime urgency or political opposition. Zara no longer blushed and looked away when Jake spoke passionately about his causes. Instead, she challenged him intellectually and supported him emotionally in everything he did. Jake had learned to appreciate Valarian culture's emphasis on long-term planning and careful consideration. He still believed in adapting quickly to changing situations, but now he understood the value of thinking several moves ahead. The colony attracted settlers from both species, who wanted to build something new together. Human families lived next to Valarian households in neighborhoods designed for both cultures. Children played games that mixed traditions from both worlds. Zara had established training programs where human and Valarian military officers learned from each other. The chaos versus order debate had evolved into understanding that both approaches had value depending on the situation. On quiet evenings like this one, Zara and Jake would discuss plans for expanding the colony and improving relations between their species. They had become partners in every sense of the word, working toward goals that neither could have achieved alone. The war against the void swarm continued in distant star systems, but the threat to the homeworld was over. Other alien species had begun requesting alliance with the human Valarian partnership after seeing how effective their combined forces could be. Zara touched Jake's hand as they watched the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded her of human and Valarian ship lights dancing together during battle. She was no longer the bashful princess who could barely speak to him during their first meeting. She had become a confident leader who understood that love could be as powerful as any weapon when it inspired people to protect what mattered most. The alliance between their species had begun with military necessity, but had grown into something much deeper and more lasting. Jake squeezed her hand gently and smiled at the woman who had changed his understanding of what strength really meant. Together, they had proven that different cultures could learn from each other without losing what made them special. The future stretched ahead, full of challenges and opportunities. There would be more battles to fight and more colonies to build, but they would face everything together as partners who had found in each other the missing pieces of themselves. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Zara realized that her struggle to keep her composure around the human warrior had ended long ago. Now she struggled to imagine any future that did not include him by her side.